Hello and welcome to another Your Partnerships Meets. And I'm so privileged to have Colette here from Like Within Coaching. Coaching. So I just want to point out a little bit about, when you hear the word coaching, normally people think about certain types of business coaching or personal training coaching, these type of things, which is great. But Colette, you're a little bit different. So tell us a little bit about, what you do, how you do, why you do.
Yeah. Okay. So my background's not in the corporate world. So I come from a psychology background. So
Yes.
I'm incredibly interested in consciousness and how the two parts of our consciousness work together. And that if we begin to master that, what that might mean for the way we create our lives. And although your partnerships is a business to business kind of thing, anyone who's in business still wants to live a life that includes their health and well-being, their relationships, their vocation, obviously, or their business, but also my favourite section is time, money, freedom. So unless we've got all of those things working together, then we're not really living a full life. So I like to look at that whole picture, and we do that by starting with a vision. So most people actually spend more time imagining their annual vacation and what that's going to look like than they do thinking about how they would love their life to look in even like 3-5 years. I mean, sometimes they might do through a business lens, like with your SMART goal or whatever, but this is just much bigger than that. And basically, the central to this work, and it sounds really simple, but you've got to ask yourself how often you do this, is to ask yourself the question, what would I love? Like, what would I really love? And in a way, that means imagining you're 7, 8, 9 and taking the lid off, so if you wanted to be an astronaut, you could be, or whatever you wanted to do. So basically, a lot of my work is around suspending the how. Okay. So if you imagine that we've got where we are now, for most of us, we've not even got the blueprint of where we want to go. So my work is a lot about helping people to get that blueprint. What happens for a lot of people is they might start dreaming of something they would love. They see somebody, for example, think, oh, I'd really love that. But then as soon as they start thinking about how that's possible, or if they could have it very quickly, we've got tons of mindsets that just close that down. So it doesn't actually just even get past go. So literally that thought just dies or becomes very lukewarm or watered down. And the whole point of having a blueprint, even if it's all the way over there and we've got no clue how we're going to do it, my job is to get you from here, where you are now, to that blueprint. And one of the fundamental ways is around suspending the how. And if we're prepared to do that and to work really specifically with the way our consciousness works, we can start to have a direct reach from here to there. And one of the ways we can do this is we can use psychology, and we can also bring that into the field of spirituality, and we can work with the universal laws. Now, these universal laws, most people have heard of the law of attraction. That's simply one of those laws.
Absolutely.
And there's a whole host of other laws. And fundamental to all of these laws is the law of vibration. And the understanding is that, the only thing that's stopping us being where we want to be is if we're not vibrational match to it. So there's a whole kind of suite of tools that we can do that will take us there. However, it's not for the faint-hearted, because it does mean going somewhat off-piste, or as Scott Peck would say, following the road less travelled. In fact, Brock, I was at a recent training conference in America, and one of the things that really stands out for me was they were sort of crunching all the data and the figures, and out of the global population, there's only 5% of people who are really engaging with how they can use this consciousness. And I imagine, anyone who's kind of my age or older will remember The Secret and all of those things. So and I think a lot of people invested in that stuff, and then kind of it fell down fairly quickly. And certainly like 10 years ago, I've tried to do this stuff and I've not really been able to make it work. And I think, it is because there's actually a real discipline and rigor.
Well, I was going to say it's not that it doesn't work, it's just we stop working it.
Yeah, and so and a big piece of that is, I was just listening on the way driving here to one of my coaches, and is this idea that, you know, we do have to like put our faith in these laws, and that's comparable to, like, you know, it's invisible laws, but if you think about electricity, it works on invisible code, right? Like I don't know how to make it work, but I do know that if I go and turn on the light switch, that I don't think, oh, I wonder if it's going to work this time. I just know. So it's that conviction that puts me on a vibration whereby I'm expecting that to come on. Same with the law of gravity. We don't really see it, but you don't kind of think, oh, I wonder if when I get out of bed this morning, I'm just going to float
Every
off.
time I step on the scale, I can tell it's working.
Exactly.
Well, one of the things you were talking about that reminds me of one of my favorite. It's the same similar things, but it's the saying I picked up on the way is anyone can dream, but who can believe?
Yeah,
and that's what you're doing. You're taking that, just like you said from the vacation thing. You're taking that actual dream, which is wonderful, but turning that dream into that belief. And the same thing, like you said about because The Secret or Law of Attraction, all those things, it's no different than you know, someone's going to run a marathon. Well, if they dream that they're going to run a marathon, if they never train or never do anything, they might go run a marathon. There will be some people, some silly people do. But even if you completed that one task, if you don't keep that training and keep everything going, then it's not going to keep working. And that's the same thing you're saying.
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing.
It's staying dedicated to it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what's amazing, and I like to talk about the art and science of manifestation, because in a way that the art part is creating the vision, and the science part is how do we how do we navigate and utilize these laws to get there? And it's really formulaic, actually. And it's just about training that muscle, just in the same way you turn up for the gym. So if I go back to how the conscious mind works, then if you imagine your subconscious mind to be like soil, so just like a garden of soil, and we can choose to plant whatever we want to into that soil. Right. And the way we do that is through our conscious mind. So our conscious mind, the good news is we have got agency over that conscious mind, although a lot of people don't use that agency. So most people in the course of a day drift here, drift there, think about what they're having for tea, but actually it is in our potential and power as human beings to be able to really start to notice our thinking. You know, so at any point in the day we can literally ask the question, well, you know, what am I thinking right now? And often, like, when you start doing that, you realize how pedestrian a lot of our thinking is, how automated, how dull, and often how negative, especially when we're plugging into the world via the news and what's happening in the world. You know, it can be a very sticky, difficult vibration. And what we tend to do is look at our current results. So if I look at my bank account and I've only got £10, and then in my vision I want to kind of go on a tour of Egypt, then I look at my current reality, and that's that. If I look at my current reality to give me permission to do that, then I've got no agency. I'm a slave to whatever's in my bank account. However, if we kind of spin that around and trust that the vision or our internal world is causal to that, then that becomes secondary to this. Does that am I making sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense.
So what we tend to do is just give our attention to what's happening now, and that's why we create more of the same. And for a lot of us,
we stay stuck in that.
We stay stuck, yeah. So we're just going round, we're going round, we're going round. So with this this way of working, we start to choose, instead of living by default, kind of rolling with the punches, we start to shift towards living by design. And it's a really brilliant thing. And I think this is, like, you know, more important than anything I've manifested is knowing that as a human being that we have that agency, that we are creators, you know, and that we can actually take the steering wheel of our lives, and we can use that in service of really good things. In fact, the way the universal laws work, to really kind of get on those frequencies, it has to be in service of the greater whole. So, when you're working with a vision, it needs to have good in it for you, and also good in it for others,
for everyone,
and also good in it for the whole. This really ultimately, and I don't want to sound too kind of spiritual, but we have the capacity to create heaven on earth. We really do have that, and we can also, and we don't have to stand apart from that. We can have that for ourselves if we stop believing in scarcity. I just wanted to point out one other thing though as well. Often, like, people might think of this work as kind of bypassing the reality of situations that are happening in the world, or bypassing our own current circumstances. But it's not that, because I can look at my bank account and see that £10 is in there. There's a reality to that's a fact.
Yep, absolutely.
But we can honour and respect and include the facts, but not be determined by those facts. So again, and again, it's like it is a daily practice, because it's not like you just get to this place and you're living in some kind of spiritual nirvana or whatever. I wish, but it's not like that. But it's a practice, like every time I catch myself being irritated at the kids or whatever, I've got a choice.
Yep.
I've got a choice to just do that weeding, and then going back to the subconscious mind. The more we're planting golden seeds into that, then just the same way. A farmer, if you plant an apple seed, you're going to get an apple tree. If you plant a weed, you're going to get a weed. So we've got this choice of what we plant, and then just as a farmer trusts that law of gestation and everything else, we're going to get those things. So I'd actually go as far as to say that we have a responsibility to do that. And I almost feel like, literally, I feel as human beings that we are sat on acres of diamonds, and we've got our back to it.
Reminds me of another one. You talk about the planting. One of my favorite sayings. There's a spiritual man that has a beautiful garden.
Yeah.
And a man walking past says, "Oh, you must pray so well to God to be able to have this beautiful garden." He says, "Yes, I do pray, but I do lots of work in between my prayers."
Yes.
So, which is the same
exactly
sort of thing.
That. Yeah,
so
exactly that.
we're going to need to, because we're going to run out of time for the video itself.
Yeah.
But while obviously I've been to your beautiful studio and place you do your workshops and your office and everything else and your counseling there that in Cornwall itself. So we'll have your connections on this side. But also let people know how they can work with you online and these type of things as well.
Yeah. So currently, I still practice as a psychotherapist, but my passion is around this evolution of consciousness and kind of, going beyond this 5% and seeing we can kind of improve that. So anybody who's interested in or resonates with what I've said today, you can contact us via our website. We do a free 1-hour vision workshop, which is online, that runs once a month. And that basically means you can log on, you can have an hour of starting to create your own blueprint. And then for those who are interested beyond that, then I have a whole suite of programs with different kind of levels of entry and so on. So there's lots of stuff to access, lots of availability. Whether if you're geographically based in Cornwall, you can come and work in person. If not, everything's there online.
And you travel a lot as well.
I do. Yeah, I do.
So your first time here, I want to say thank you to Corker Media for having us out here today.
Yes, thank you.
First time out the studio, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
What would you say to anyone that's not been out before?
I'd say it's very easy, and I've had a really flowing morning, courtesy of Brock and the team here. So get yourselves down here.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Jay's behind the camera, and thanks to Louise, who's behind your camera.
Yes,
so
I want to give a shout out to Louise.
Yeah, Louise, thanks for all that you
amazing.
do. We can't make any things work without the rudder and everything else that goes with it. So thank you so much. Well, thanks for coming out here. I'm sure we'll have you out again at some time soon. And for the rest of you, we'll see you again soon. Thank you.